All right, let's go at it again. I hope, can you all hear me now? Come, guys, can you all hear me now? Lord of His mercy. Let me see. Yes, yes, loud and clear. You know what I believe happened? You know what I believe happened? TikTok was playing in the background. It's that TikTok they always sabotage people. But anyway, now we are here. I'm a chat out all of me that got chat already, you know. I was talking about how we were reading the book yesterday about taking out the flood. And yesterday we were reading about how Rosalind and David were being sabotaged by this Arden guy, and also how um Beatrice Lippincott seemed to be in on it, where they're trying to convince Rosalind that her husband, her first husband who had died in South Africa, was really not dead. He was still alive. And with that, that would mean that Rosalind's marriage to Gordon Cloud would have been invalid since she had her first husband would be considered to be still alive. So if he's still alive, then her marriage to Gordon would be invalid. And that would essentially make her not anymore the heir to Gordon Cloud's wealth. And you know the wealth is what they're all after. So they can come up with all kinds of things to snatch all that money out of Rosalind's hands because they don't think Rosalind deserve it. And so the plot has thickened. Yeah, this wasn't what we're going to do. But you don't know, some, I cannot sit down here and look at the book and not read it. All right. So while my phone is charging, we're going to read. Once the phone is charged, we're going to go out, go down, and go try to see if we can see the ball and then continue talking from there. But it's going to be dark, so we're not going to be able to read out there. So I'm going to read a few chapters first. Oh, don't mind, right? Chapter 12 says, when Rowley left the stag, his steps turned automatically in the direction of home. But after walking a few hundred yards, he pulled up short and retraced his steps. His mind took things in slowly, and his first astonishment over Beatrice's revelation was only now beginning to give way to a true appreciation of their significance. If her version of what she had overheard was correct, and he had no doubt that in substance it was so, then a situation had arisen which concerned every member of the Clouds family closely. The person most filled the person most fitted to deal with this was clearly Rowley's uncle Jeremy. As a solicitor, Jeremy Cloud would know what use could what use As a solicitor, Jeremy Cloud would know what use could best be made of of this surprising information and exactly what steps to take. But remember, Jeremy is a solicitor and a lawyer, but not the brightest in the pack. He's definitely not the brightest lamp on the chandelier. But anyway, though Rowley would have liked to take action himself, he realized rather grudgingly that it would be far better to lay the matter before a shrewd and experienced lawyer. The sooner Jeremy was in possession of this information, the better, and accordingly, Rowley bent his footsteps straight to Jeremy's house in the High Street. The little maid who opened the door informed him that Mr. and Mrs. Cloud were still at dinner table. She would have shown him in there, but Rowley negatived this and said he would wait in Jeremy's study till they had finished. He did not particularly want to include Francis in the colloquy. Indeed, the fewer people who knew about it, the better, until they should have determined on a definite course of action. He wandered restlessly up and down Jeremy's study, On the flat-topped desk was a tin dispatch box labeled Sir William Jessamy, deceased. The shelves held a collection of legal tomes. There was an old photograph of Frances in evening dress and one of her father, Lord Edward Trenton, in riding kit. On the desk was a picture of a young man in uniform, Jeremy's son Anthony, killed in the war. Rowley winced and turned away. He sat down in a chair and stared at Lord Edward Trenton instead. In the dining room, Frances said to her husband, I wonder what Rowley wants. Jeremy said wearily, probably fallen foul of some government regulation. No farmer understands more than a quarter of those forms they have to fill up. Rowley's a conscientious fellow. He gets really worried. He's nice, says Francis, but terribly slow. I have a feeling, that things aren't going too well between him and Lynn. Jeremy murmured vacantly. Lynn? Oh, yes, of course. Forgive me. I don't seem able to concentrate. The strain, Francis said swiftly. Don't think about it. It's going to be all right, I tell you. You frighten me sometimes, Francis. You are so terribly reckless. You don't realize. I realize everything. I'm not afraid. Really. Jeremy, I'm rather enjoying myself. That, my dear, said Jeremy, is just what causes me such anxiety. She smiled. Come, she said, you mustn't keep you mustn't keep that bucolic. I have it marked, which means that when I read the book before, I had looked it up, but we definitely don't remember what that word I mean. So we're going to look again. Bucolic. B-U-C. Related to the pleasant aspects of the countryside and country life. The church is lovely for its bucolic set. So you see how nicely they're calling you see how nicely they're calling not Jeremy, Rowley. You see how nicely they're calling Rowley a country boy? Oh my gosh. He says, come, she says. You mustn't keep that bucolic young man waiting too long. Go and help him to fill up Form 1199 or whatever it is. But as they came out of the dining room, the front door banged shut. Edna came to tell them that Rowley had said he wouldn't wait and that it was nothing that really mattered. Yes, they call him Rowley a country boy. Oh my God. Chapter 13. Let's move on to chapter 13, guys. On that particular Tuesday afternoon, Lynn Marchmount had gone for a long walk. Conscious of a growing relentlessness and dissatisfaction with herself, she felt the need for thinking things out. She had not seen Rowley for some days. After their somewhat stormy parting, on the morning she had asked him to lend her £500, they had met as usual. Lynn realized that her demand had been unreasonable and that Rowley had been well within his rights to turn it down. Nevertheless, reasonableness had never been a quality that appeals to lovers. Outwardly, things were the same between her and Rowley. Inwardly, she was not so sure. I think she likes David. What do you all think? I think she likes David more than just liking him. I think she really likes him. The last few days she had found unbearably monotonous, yet hardly liked to acknowledge to herself that David Hunter's sudden departure to London with his sister might have something to do with their monotony. What we just said? I think she likes David. David, she admitted ruefully, was an exciting person. As for her relations, at the moment she found them all unbearably trying. Her mother was in the best of spirits and had annoyed Lynn at lunch that day by announcing that she was going to try and find a second gardener. Old Tom really can't keep up with things here. But, darling, we can't afford it, Lynn had exclaimed. Nonsense! I really think, Lynn, that Gordon would be terribly upset if he could see how the gardener's gone down. He was so particular, always about the border, and the grass being kept mowed, and the paths in good order. And just look at it now. I feel Gordon would want it put in order again, even if we have to borrow money from his widow to do it. I told you, Lynn, Rosaline couldn't have been nicer about it. I really think she quite saw my point of view. I had a nice balance at the bank after paying all the bills. And I really think a second gardener would be an economy. Think of the extra vegetables we could grow. We could buy a lot of extra vegetables for a good deal less, another £3 a week. You hear that? You hear people like to make plans and think about other people's money to pay for it. That's the hallmark of an envious person. They make big plans, knowing they don't have the money to do it, but you hear her already planning, so she will get the money to borrow from Rosalind. Imagine that. I think we could get someone for less than that, dear. There are men coming out of the services now who want jobs. The paper says so. Lynn said dryly, I doubt if you'll find them in Wormsley Vale or in Wormsley Heath. But although the matter was left like that, the tenderness of her mother to count on Rosalind as a regular source of support haunted Lynn. It revived the memory of David's sneering words. So, feeling disgruntled and out of temper, she set out to walk her black mood off. Her temper was not improved by a meeting with Aunt Katy outside the post office. Aunt Katy was in a good spirits. I think, Lynn dear, that we should soon have good news. Got to make exactly making plans, and then you're making plans to borrow money to fund those plans that you are making, and not borrow from a bank or something else to borrow people's money. You see how people just bad mind and envious? What on earth do you mean, Aunt Katy? Mrs. Cloud nodded and smiled and looked wise. I've had the most astonishing communications, really astonishing. A simple happy ending to all our troubles. I had one setback, but since then I've got the message to try, and try again. If at first you don't succeed, you know what I mean. I'm not going to betray any secrets. Lynn, dear, and the last thing I should want to do would be to raise false hopes prematurely. But I have the strongest belief that things will very soon be quite all right. And quite time too. I am really very worried about your uncle. He worked far too hard during the war. He really needs to retire and devote himself to his specialized studies. But of course, he can't do that without an adequate income. And sometimes he has such queer nervous fits. I am really very worried about him. He's really quite odd. Lynn nodded thoughtfully. The change in Lionel Cloud had not escaped her notice, nor his curious alternation of moods. She suspected that he occasionally had recourse to drugs to stimulate himself, and she wondered whether he were not to a certain extent an addict. It would account for his extreme nervous irritability. She wondered how much Aunt Katy knew or guessed. Aunt Katy, thought Lynn, was not such a fool as she looked. Going on down to High Street, she caught a glimpse of her Uncle Jeremy letting himself into his front door. He looked Lynn thought, very much older just in these last few weeks. Of course, him look older, worrying and fretting about people money. She quickened her pace. She wanted to get out of Wormsley Vale, up onto the hills and onto spaces. Setting out at a brisk pace, she soon felt better. She would go for a good tramp of 6 or 7 miles and really think things out. Always, all her life, she had been a resolute, clear headed person. She had known what she wanted and what she didn't want. Never, until now, had she been content just to drift along. Yet, that was just what it was, drifting along, an aimless, formless method of living. Ever since she had come out of the service, a wave of nostalgia swept over her for those war days, days when duties were clearly defined, when life was planned and orderly, when the weight of the individual decisions had been lifted from her. But even as she formulated the idea, she was horrified at herself. Was that really and truly what people were secretly feeling everywhere? Was that what ultimately war did to you? It was not the physical dangers, the mines at sea, the bombs from the air, the crisp ping of a rifle bullet as you drove over a dirt desert track. No, it was the spiritual danger of learning how much easier life was if you ceased to think. She, Lynn Marchmont, was, was no longer the clear-headed, resolute, intelligent girl who had joined up. Her intelligence had been specialized, directed in well-defined channels. Now, mistress of herself and her life once more, she was appalled at the disinclination of her mind to cease and grapple with her own personal problems. With a sudden wry smile, Lynn thought to herself, odd if it's really what newspaper character, the housewife, who has come into her own through war conditions. The women who, hindered by innumerable small knots, were not helped by any definitive shawls. Women who had to plan and think and improvise, who had to use every inch of the ingenuity they had been given, and to develop an ingenuity that they didn't know they even had. They alone, thought Linnell, could stand upright without a crunch, responsible for themselves and others. And she, Lynn Marchmont, well educated, clever, having done a job that needed brains and close application, was now rudderless, devoid of resolution. Yes, hateful word, drifting. The people who had stayed at home, Rowley for instance, but at once Lynn's mind dropped from vague generalities to the immediate to the immediately personal, herself and Rowley. That was the problem, the real problem, the only problem. Did she really want to marry Rowley? I don't think so, guys. I think she likes David. Tommy, Tommy, what, Tommy? How are you doing, my love? Good to see you. Fly girl Georgia, I need to talk to. How are you feeling, my love? I know the other day you were not feeling well, but I've been so busy. I said, oh my God, I must go over to Facebook or look for Fly Girl and see how she's doing. How are you doing, my love? Good to see you. I see baby girl taking care of her mommy. Mwah. Yeah, that's what they do. I am doing great, naturally, Tammy. I am doing great, my love. I am here. I'm going to read another chapter of this book. My phone is just about charging. I'm just reading while I'm here until my phone gets to be fully charged. Once my phone is fully charged, I'm going to go down and let you all see the lights and whatever. I'm going to walk through the casino so you all can see. I ain't doing no gambling. No, no gambling for me. None at all. I'm in the rear. I can't walk. Oh Oh my gosh, Fly Girl. Oh no, guys. We gotta be sending up prayers for Fly Girl Georgia. She says she's now in the rehab and she's not able to walk at the moment. Oh no. We gotta send up some prayers for our sister Fly Girl Georgia. You know, Fly Girl Georgia is one of our best supporters here. Is one of my best supporters here on YouTube and also on Facebook. Yeah. So we gotta send up prayers for you, my dear sister. All right. Naturally, tell me what you been up to. What you been up to, sis? What have you been up to? Good to see you. Happy Friday. Happy Friday, everybody. Good to see you all. I'm reading this book, Taken at the Flood. I know some always have my head in a book. Yeah. Yes, guys. We are going to be sending up prayers for you, Fly Girl Georgia, and hope that you feel better soon and that, things work out well for you. Okay. Welcome into the live, guys. Guys, don't forget to hit the like button. And what the like button do no? It now gonna electrocute you, It now gonna do no nothing. Don't forget to hit the like button. It's calling you. It's calling you. All right, Tita me saying the speedy recovery to you, Fly Girl. Yes, and thank you so much, naturally, Tammy. All right, we are going to continue. So, Lynn is thinking about herself and she is thinking about Rowley. She says that was the problem, the real problem, the only problem. Did she really want to marry Rowley? Slowly, the shadows lengthened to twilight and dusk. Lynn sat motionless, her chin cupped in her hands on the outskirts of a small copse on the hillside, looking down over the valley. She had lost count of time, but she knew that she was strangely reluctant to go home to the White House. Below her, away to the left, was Long Willows. Long Willows, her home, if she married Rowley. If, that is. It came back to that. If. A bird flew out of the woods with a startling cry, like the cry of an angel, like the cry of an angry child. A billow of smoke from a train went eddyingly up in the sky, forming as it did so a giant question mark. Question mark. Shall I marry Rowley? Do I really want to marry Rowley? Did I ever want to marry Rowley? Could I bear not to marry Rowley? Oh, she's asking herself all these questions. The train puffed away up the valley. The smoke quivered and dispersed, but the question mark did not fade from Lynn's mind. Do I really want to marry Rowley? She had loved Rowley before she went away. But I've come home changed, she thought. I'm not the same Lynn that went to the war. A line of poetry floated into her mind. Life and the world and mine own self are changed. And Rowley? Rowley hadn't changed. Yes, that was it. Rowley hadn't changed. Rowley was where she had left him 4 years ago. Did she really want to marry Rowley? If not, what did she want? Twigs crackled in the corpse behind her, and a man's voice cursed as he pushed his way through. She cried out, David! Lynn! He looked amazed as he came crashing through the undergrowth. What is the name of fortune? What in the name of fortune are you doing here? He had been running and was slightly out of breath. I don't know. Just thinking, sitting and thinking. She laughed uncertainly. I suppose it's getting very late. Haven't you any idea of the time? She looked down vaguely at her wristwatch. It stopped again. I disorganized watches. More than watches you do, David said. It's the electricity in you, the vitality, the life. He came up to her and vaguely disturbed, she rose quickly to her feet. It's getting quite dark. I must hurry home. What time is it, David? 9:15. I must run like a hare. I simply must catch the 9:20 train to London. I didn't know you had come back here. I had to get some things from Forobank, but I must catch this train. Rosalind's alone in the flat, and she gets the jitters if she's alone at night in London. Is a service in a service flat? Lynn's voice was scornful. David said sharply, Fear isn't logical. When you have suffered from blast. Lynn was suddenly ashamed, contrite. She said, Oh, I'm sorry. I'm sorry, I'd forgotten. With a sudden bitterness, David cried out, Yes, it's soon forgotten, all of it. Back to safety, back to tameness, back to where we were when the whole bloody show started. Creep into all rotten little holes and play safe again. You, too, Lynn, you are just the same as the rest of them. She cried, I'm not, I'm not, David. I was just thinking now of me. His quickness startled her. His arm was around her, holding him to her. He kissed her with a hot, angry lip. Then how he just grabbed the man's fiancée and kissed her like that? He kissed her with hot, angry lips. Rowley Cloud, he said, that oof. By God, Lynn, you belong to me. Then, as suddenly as he had taken her, he released her, almost thrusting her away from him. I'll miss the train. He ran headlong down the hillside. David! He turned his head, calling back, I'll ring you when I get to London. She watched him running through the gathering gloom, light and athletic and full of natural grace. Then, shaken, her heart strangely stirred, her mind chaotic, she walked slowly homeward. She hesitated a little before going in. She shrank from her mother's affectionate welcome, her questions, her mother who had borrowed £500 from people whom she despised. We have no right to despise Rosalind and David, thought Lynn, as she went very softly upstairs. We are just the same. We do anything for money. She stood in her bedroom, looking curiously at her face in the mirror. It was, she thought, the face of a stranger. And then, sharply, anger shook her. If Rowley really loved me, she thought, he'd have got that £500 for me somehow. He would. I just know he would. He wouldn't let me be humiliated by having to take it from David. David. David had said he would ring her when he got to London. She went downstairs, walking in a dream. Dreams, she thought, could be very dangerous things. Guys, it looks like David is about to take Rowley's woman. It don't look like it's going to be pretty. David seems like he's in love with Lynn. But remember, Lynn is engaged to Rowley. And they're all the same, all desperate for money. Because Uncle Gordon died and left all that money, and all they want is their hands on the money. But Rosalind is the one responsible for the money because she is the widow. Well, when we come back, maybe tomorrow, I'm not sure, it all depends on my schedule tomorrow. But when Raw Chattings is in the house, Raw Chattings, how you doing? My sister Shadeen is here. Shadeen, how you doing? Keep reading the story about me. Let me keep on reading the story about you. Lord is mercy. Maybe keep on reading the story about you. Let me see what chapter 14 say. All right, I'm going to read chapter 14, and this is the last one. This is the last one I'm going to read. Chapter 14 says, Oh, there you are, Lynn. Adela's voice was brisk and relieved. I didn't hear you come in, darling. Have you been in long? Oh, yes, ages. I was upstairs. I wish you'd tell me when you come in, Lynn. I'm always nervous when you're out alone, especially after dark. Really, Moms, don't you think I can look after myself? Well, there have been dreadful things in the papers lately. All these discharged soldiers, they attack girls. I expect the I expect the girls ask for it, really. She smiled, rather a twisted smile. Yes, girls did ask for danger, huh? Who, after all, really wanted to be safe? Lynn, darling, are you listening? Lynn brought her mind back with a jerk. Her mom had been talking. What did you say, Mom? I was talking about your bridesmaids, dear. I suppose they'll be able to produce the coupons all right. It's very lucky for you having all your demob ones. I'm really terribly sorry for girls who get married nowadays on just their ordinary coupons. I mean, they just can't have anything new at all. Not outside, I mean. What with the state of of all one's undies are in nowadays, one just has to go for them. Yes, Lynn, you really are lucky. Really? 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 You are so welcome, Shadeen, my love. Oh my God. Oh, very lucky. She was walking round the room, prowling, picking up things, putting them down. Must you be so terribly restless, dear? You make me feel quite jumpy. Sorry, Moms. There's nothing the matter, is there? What should be the matter? Asked Lynn sharply. Well, don't jump down my throat, darling. Now, about the bridesmaid. I really think you ought to ask the Macri girl. Her mother was my closest friend, remember? And I do think she'll be hurt if what, Mom? I loathe Joan McRae and always have. I know, darling, but does that really matter? Marjorie will, I'm sure, feel hurt. Really, Mom, it's my wedding, isn't it? Yes, I know, Lynn, but if there is a wedding at all, huh? She hadn't meant to say that. The words slipped out without her having planned them. You know why the words slip out? Because they are right here. Excuse me. They are right here. It's in Lynn's subconscious. Lynn is already thinking, she was already doubting whether or not she should marry Rowley. And that is why it came out of her mouth and said to her mom, if there is when it's going to be a wedding. She said it slipped out. She hadn't meant to say that. The words slipped out without her having planned them. She would have caught them back, but it was too late. Mrs. Marchmont was staring at her daughter in alarm. Lynn, darling, what do you mean? Oh, nothing, Mom, nothing. You and Rowley haven't quarreled, have you? No, no, not at all. Of course not. Don't fuss, Moms. Everything's all right. But Adela was looking at her daughter in real alarm. Yes, my girl, she's thinking it. That's why it came out. But Adela was looking at her daughter in real alarm, sensitive to the turmoil behind Lynn's frowning exterior. I've always felt you'd be so safe married to Rowley, she said piteously. Who wants to be safe? Lynn asked scornfully. She turned sharply. Was that the telephone? No, why? Are you expecting a call? Lynn shook her head, humiliating to be waiting for the telephone to ring. He had said he would ring her tonight. He must. You are mad, she told herself. Mad? Why did this man attract her so? The memory of his dark, unhappy face rose up before her eyes. She tried to banish it, tried to replace it by Rowley's broad, good-looking countenance, his slow smile, his affectionate glance. But did Rowley, she thought, really care about her? Surely, if he had really cared, he'd have understood that day when she came to him and begged him for £500. No, she not understand, you know. No, she not understand. She got that £500 from David only because, only because David like her. So I don't know if David is trying to buy her affection, but I think that her judgment is also clouded by money. She just like her mother. Remember, say her mother borrowed the $500 from. Remember, say her mother borrowed the $500 from Rosalind, and even Lynn was not happy about it because she said her mother stooped too low to borrow the money to borrow the £500 from Rosalind. All right, all right. Let us continue. Surely, if he had really cared, he'd have understood that day when she came to him and begged him for £500. He'd have understood instead of being so maddeningly reasonable and so matter of fact, marry Rowley, live on the farm, never go away again, never see foreign skies, never smell exotic smells, never again be free. Hell to the no. Sharply, the telephone rang. Lynn took a deep breath, walked across the hall, and picked up the receiver. With the shock of a blow, Aunt Katie's voice came thinly through the wire. Lynn, is that you, dear? Oh, I'm so glad. I'm afraid, I made better a muddle about the meeting at the Institute. The thin, fluttering voice went on. Lynn listened, interpolated comments, uttered reassurances, received thanks. Such a comfort, dear Lynn. You are always so kind and so practical. I really can't imagine how I get things so muddled up. The nerve, yes, Carl, the nerves. Yes, she was upset. Lynn was upset with her mother, Adeline. She said her mom had stooped low for going to borrow the £500 from Rosalind. So she was just not happy about it. So she wanted, I think she wanted the £500 from Rowley to give it back to Rosalind. That's what I thought she wanted the £500 for. But the story didn't say that, but I just thought that's what she wanted because it was in that instant of being mad at her mom for having borrowed the $500 that she decided that she wanted $500 from Rowley. So I just tried to put two and two together and just decided that maybe she wanted back that $500 to give back. But we will see. Lynn couldn't imagine either. Aunt Katie's capacity for muddling the simplest issues amounted practically to genius. But I always do say, finished Aunt Katie, that everything goes wrong at once. Our telephone is out of order, and I've had to go out to a call box, and now I'm here. I hadn't gone twopence. I haven't got twopence, only half pennies, and I had to go and ask. It pettered out at last. Lynn hung up and went back to the drawing room. Adeline Marchmont, alert, asked, Was that? And paused. Lynn said quickly, Aunt Katie, what did she want? Oh, just one of her usual muddles. Lynn sat down again with a book, glancing up at the clock. Yes, it had been too early. She couldn't expect her call yet. At 5 minutes past 11, the telephone rang again. She went slowly out to get it. This time she wouldn't expect. It was probably Aunt Katie again. But no. Wormsley Vale 34? Can Miss Lynn Marchmont take a personal call from London? Her heart missed a beat. This is Miss Lynn Marchmont speaking. Hold on, please. She waited. Confused noises, then silence. The telephone service was getting worse and worse and worse these days. She waited. Finally, she depressed the receiver angrily. Another woman's voice, indifferent, cold, spoke, cold, spoke, was uninterested. Hang up, please. You'll be called later. She hung up, went back towards the drawing room. The, the bell rang again. As she had her hand on the door, she hurried back to the telephone. Hello? A man's voice said. Wormsley Vale 34? Personal call from London for Miss Lynn Marchmont. Speaking. Just a minute, please. Then faintly, speak up. London, you are through. And then, suddenly, David's voice. Lynn, is that you? They get it all lovey dovey. David, I had to speak to you. Yes. Look here, Lynn. That sounds like he said that in a Kevin Hart's voice. Look. You know, Kevin Hart always say, look here. He said, look here, Lynn. I think I'd better clear out. What do you mean? Clear out of England altogether? Oh, it's easy enough. I've pretended it wasn't to Rosalind, simply because I didn't want to leave Wormsley Vale. But what's the good of it all? You and I, it wouldn't work. You're a fine girl, Lynn. And as for me, I'm a bit of a crook, always have been. And don't flatter yourself that I'd go straight for your sake. I might mean to, but it wouldn't work. No, no, no. It wouldn't work. No, you had better marry the plodding Rowley. He'll never give you a day's anxiety as long as you live. I should give you hell. She stood there holding the receiver, saying nothing. Lynn, are you still there? Yes, I'm here. You didn't say anything. What is there to say? Lynn, well, strange how clearly she could feel over all this distance, his excitement, the urgency of his mood. His, he cursed softly. He cursed softly. Oh, to hell with everything! And rang off. Mrs. Marchmont, coming out of the drawing room, said, Who was that? A wrong number, said Lynn, and went quickly up the stairs. She says a wrong number. Listen, let me tell you something. Let me tell you something. You see, new love will drive you crazy. And you see, if you have a relationship, a good relationship going, if you have a good relationship that's going, and you suddenly come upon new love, and you start get the butterflies and the anxiety and all of that, you need to pause, take a stop. You need to gather up yourself because that is when you're going to make a bad decision. Because all of a sudden, David appears quite attractive to Lynn. And now, Rowley don't seem too attractive to her anymore. So now she has confusion, antagonism going on in her mind. Should I go with David? Should I go with Rowley? Dog who want to bone, go to bed with none. You all remember when we were children, those of us who are Jamaican, we used to have a little story about the dog and the bone. There was a dog who was a very greedy dog. Anything him see other dogs have, he are eating, him want it, and he must stop until he get it. And one day he had a bone, nice big juicy bone, and he was passing by the water where the water was running, and he looked in the water. He saw a reflection of himself with the bone in his mouth, and he swore that that was another dog in the water with a bone. And what did he do? He jumped in the water to get the bone from the other dog. And in that moment, he lost his bone and didn't get another bone. So that can be applied. That the moral of that story: love your own things, care your own things, and stop ready after other people's things. You see all these people in the story. You see all these people. Mr. Catch, you know all of the storybook them, you know. That's the Caribbean readers. I think that's probably what it was. I thank you so much, Georgia. Thank you so much, my love. But yeah, guys, So you see these people, Lynn, Lynn is now having this antagonism going on in her mind. She don't know if she no longer know whether or not she love Rowley. She no longer know whether or not she want to marry Rowley. Now she's contemplating: should I marry Rowley? Should I start a relationship with David? What is going on in her mind? That's what new love usually happens. Usually cause. For some people it work out, and for some people it never work out. Okay? You said it was too greedy. Exactly, Georgia. Too greedy. Too greedy. So here is Lynn concerned about whether or not she should, whether or not she should continue with Rowley, or start the relationship with David. I don't know what she's going to do. I don't know what is going to happen, but there are so many plots going on in the story at the same time, because Lynn's mother, Adeline, can't say, if you have to ask yourself that question, then maybe not. You're right. If you have to ask yourself whether or not you should, you're already questioning whether or not Rowley is the man for you. And Rowley might very well be the man for her. But just with the injection of another man coming into the mix, makes her mind start going like this. And then when she matches up Rowley and David, she will see that if David keeps his hands on the money that Rosalind has, then Lynn won't be want for anything. And then she can always cipher off the money and give to our beggy mother named Adeline. Yes. And then the other rest of the Cloud family can manipulate her to get money from Rosalind to give to them. So she would be close to the handling of the money. So I don't know if that is what is on her mind, or is it that she genuinely feels some kind of affection for David. I don't know. I don't know. But when I come back tomorrow, maybe I'll tomorrow morning before we go to the conference, I might read one of that piece of the story. But I want to go down the road. So guess what? My phone is fully charged. My phone is fully charged. So I'm going to cut off this live. I'm going to start one next live. Let me see this off. What is on 60%? Make it charged up. And then I'm going to see if we go out yesterday, maybe out on the pool deck, and see if we can see the ball. All right. And then we put it live on the ball, put the camera, make it see the little ball, and then we just keep on talking if we don't know what we mean. Yeah. Immediate. Yep. Watch out. My headphone did. I don't need it. I not go downstairs with it. Not the night here coming on. I not talk on it. Good night. I feel sleepy, but me there Vegas, no sleep. Thank you, my darling. Thank you, Fly Girl Georgia. Thank you so much, man. Yeah, me there, I go on up with my nice thing, beautiful self. The simplest thing is make you happy. That is make you happy. That is me. The simplest things make me happy. Me no need the excitement and the simplest things are what makes me happy. Me never because the way me raised or just the way I, yeah, me no the excitement and me not in it. Me is not in it. God says, let me say, Fly Girl say, are you on a date? On a date with myself. And I dated myself. No, sir, I'm not extra. I mean, not some things, not extra, but not like this. If me have somebody for go somewhere with like, so my colleague them they here, but them I do them young people things, yeah, man. I mean, me don't want to feel like say me in a them way. You know what I mean? Cause they are young people them. Them want to do young people things. Yeah, so yeah, them have for the young people things. So make them go and got the young people things. One of the things I'm figure eat. Yeah, me need to go eat dinner. Me need to go get dinner. I need a hearty meal. I'm not hungry now. I'm not hungry, but I know me a pay for. Me need to eat my dinner. Where say you are exit? And you what? Me no know. Me have to go downstairs, go to the restaurant, they go get some meal. You want to come with me? You want to come with me regardless. I just want to make the phone here charge. Let me see if my portable charger. Let me see if it's charged. All right, it's not on charge. But guys, when you see the blows, I wash the blows and the blows shrink. Let me show you. See it so I remember the blows so. See it here. I wash the blows and it shrink. See there? The blows shrink. So it kind of looks short. So me I try to dry down. Me I try to dry down. Blows on the buy what I don't like the material. The material is not the blows nice. The patterning is nice, but the material, you can see me wash it and see there the material also. Yeah, cheap sitting. Also when they buy cheap things. So when you buy cheap things, yeah, so that's not to stretch out the blouse to make it kind of come down. To make it kind of come down. Yeah, that's it then. Wanna tell me. It's fine if you don't draw attention to it. None of us would know. But me I show on still my business. I miss the card from I come over here, my belly gone. I mean I come back. Watch the card. Watch there. Watch there. Oh my god. Help my soul, Jesus. And I got things a children can't, but I will. Things a children can't. So What can't say? Look what it look like it. She got the belly gone to the back. It looks of it true. A true. It looks of it true. Me I tell you. Where are you? Are you putting on the bikini? Me not put on the bikini, me love. Me might go to the pool tomorrow, but me not go out time. Me not think I go out time. Yeah, me not think I go out time. Sis. Yeah, so me I cut off this alive. Yeah, me I cut off the live here. And then come go downstairs and make it look like the next live. Yeah. Let's go. Let's go back. You like my little bag? Look at handbag here. This one is just a little. Yeah, you put it like that. Yeah, just so that I keep everything close by me. Yeah, I'm not have to worry, so I'm not gonna lose anything. Yeah, everything is right here in one spot. You know what I mean? Okay. All right, so I'm gonna cut off this live now, and then we're gonna go down this. We're gonna go down the road. We're gonna leave out. Look, make sure some. Make sure some of my body stay right. Put on like a perfume. I never know who might end up smell me. Put on like a Chanel. Put on like a tooth of Chanel. All right. All right. So I'm gonna cut this live off, and then we're gonna start the new live, the Saturday night live. Let's go.